Have you ever had a jingle stuck in your head? Well, this isn't random. It is a strategy that brands are using, and most brands are not working out how to do it or even including it into their strategy. But caveat, you should be. By the end of this video, you will know exactly the science behind why sound sticks in your brain, and then how you can use it to your audience, your customers, your clients, even your own members of staff can remember you and feel a certain way about it. McDonald's, I'm loving it, or the Netflix chime, they all use the same psychological hooks to be memorable. Today we're going to break down the science. I'm going to share with you the Earworm Formula, as I'm nicknaming it, and then give you practical things that you can apply from when you finish this video. And if you stick around, I will let you know at the end how you can get a free journey strategy plan with us for a whole hour where we plan where you're at today and where you want to be in 12 months and how you can get there. So let's jump in. The secret science of why jingles stick in your head. Okay, here we go. Who is this for? Well, CEOs, CMOs, brand managers, creative directors. This is available to anybody that is essentially a decision maker at a brand. And whereabouts in the journey are you if you're watching this? Well, solution aware or product aware. You kind of know there's a problem. You're aware that there's a solution that needs fixing, and you're just trying to look out for what exactly is it you need to implement. And then third, creative production insights. That's what we're going to give you. We're going to give you a little bit of the behind the scenes. We're not just going to say to you, go and get sonic branding. I'm hoping you're at a stage where you're trying to figure out exactly what it is you need to apply and do, and that is what we're going to do today. So why does sound stick? Well, humans remember melody and rhythm better than words and images because we're tapping into emotion. We're tapping into a part of the brain that we don't quite understand why. Well, we do understand, but on a day-to-day level, we don't necessarily understand why we remember something. If I say to you, remember an ad from 5 to 10 years ago, you'll probably remember an ad because of the sound or because of a song that was chosen or used, and then the rest of it starts to fit into place. And that's kind of how the human brain actually works in the first place. So I guess it goes back to something very primeval of remembering rhythms and remembering melodies in a certain way. And I guess, in fact, I'll hold one thing I was just about to say that I know comes later. Music triggers the limbic system, which is emotion and long-term memory. And long-term memory is an interesting part of this because we have so many bits of information, but there are nearly 10,000 before lunchtime every single day, bits of information that are given to us. How are we meant to remember all of those 10,000 things? Well, it's memory and it's emotion that allows us to remember those things. And that can be good and that can be bad at the same time. And simplicity equals stickiness. The easier something is to remember, the few times that we hear it over and over again, it's like that bloody song, Baby Shark, right? It's so simple. By the time you've heard it a few times, it is completely ingrained into your brain. And we can use the same psychological application to how we use sound for brands. It's not about creating something really complex and really fancy. Often the best sonic branding is the most simple. I mean, we think of McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. By the time you've heard that a few times, it's again and again and again. So short, repeatable, and rhythmic. And I want to highlight, when I'm saying short here, short doesn't necessarily just mean that it needs to be a 2-second jingle. This is strategy that can be repeated and reoccurring in longer pieces of music as well. And it's not about just hammering that same sound over and over again, but how can we very cleverly weave in those little 2-second jingles into wider pieces of music so that we hear it a few times over the course of an ad, or we hear it within the first 2 seconds of a social media campaign, somewhere in the middle and somewhere in the end as well. These are all strategies that are actually something that we at Hear Me Out really embed into anything that we create. Contour, the rise and fall of pitches. If you play around on a melody, you can mimic the way that voices happen and mimic speech, and it feels familiar. And you can even mimic, let's say you have a brand, let's just use Hear Me Out. Like that could be a very rhythmic, that could be integrated into the sound that we use. We could use that 3 rhythmic hits, let's say, in many different ways. And I think that's what's really clever about how sound in general works. We're not just talking about melodies that we can sing along, it's also rhythmic hooks as well, rhythmic elements. So Earworm Formula. This is just a nickname, but I think it is very relevant. So the formula is repetition. So repeated notes and phrases equals recall. Predictability. Brain finishes patterns that are easy to remember. So if you were to, even the ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it, like that's how people would generally respond. There's loads of different ones as well. You've got like Go Compare in the UK. I like using that one quite a lot. There's Netflix is probably a bad example because you just have the do-do, but some people can sing along. You want that thing that's easy to remember. There's an advert in the UK. I don't know if anyone remembers this. In fact, there's two that come to mind. Washing machines live longer with Calgon. Like at some point you'll join in singing along with that. Or it's 0800 99 1066. You know, a lot of people will sing their 1066. There's so many great, and often they're really cheesy. So you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to do that for my brand, but they don't. Be cheesy is something worth pointing out, even if it's obvious. Surprise. So one unexpected note. What makes it sticky? What makes something happen that feels predictable, and then you can be like, surprise, there's something else that like jars you into taking note, triggering you out of that subconscious state. Think about when you're watching a TV advert break in a film or in a TV series that you're watching. Most people will go onto their phones now. How do we add that element of surprise to make people look up at the screen, or just, you know, something that subconsciously sticks? And some people go really extreme with this. There was a pot noodle advert that came out a couple of years ago, and for 12 seconds someone was going and it was the slurp. And most people that were on their phones were like, what is this? And then they realized pot noodle. So what is that element of surprise that makes it sticky? Lyrics. Simple, relatable. Maybe the brand name can be included, which is a way that brands have traditionally done this. Although we do not recommend it. There is a chap called Joe Sauer who is great at research and does a lot of research and testing of Sonic logos and jingles. Sonic logo is that. It's the audio version of a visual logo. He does a lot of testing. And over the months and years that we've got to know him, he has been sharing with us a lot of the research that he's been going into. So shout out to Joe Sauer. Really, really knowledgeable chap. And he was saying that actually a lot of brand logos nowadays are failing at the long-term memorability aspect, because if you say the brand name in your advertising, in your Sonic logo, your Sonic branding, brain actually it stays in the short-term memory part of your brain, because next time you hear it, you know you don't need to remember the brand, or your brain kind of logs that it doesn't need to remember the brand because it knows that you're going to say the name of the brand. So you actually remember the brand less. You might remember the melody, or remember like being able to sing it along, which might trigger you remembering the brand. But you know what I'm saying? It's kind of that long-term part of the memory of the brain doesn't need to be activated quite as much as something that's like McDonald's with their... That's much more memorable in terms of long-term than if they said something about McDonald's, you know, in the Sonic logo. I nearly was tempted into doing something really bad on the cuff there, but I refrained. Dang. So what are the practical takeaways you can take from this video today? Think about your brand as a soundbite. What does your brand sound like right now? Does it sound like anything at all? It will do, is the answer. It will sound like something, but are you aware of how it sounds? Are you consciously choosing how it sounds, or are your editors or your creative team just sort of making those decisions off the cuff without any kind of audio guidelines and creating unexpectedly an audio brand for your company already? So think of your brand as a soundbite, and how can you improve that, change that, make it suit your demographic even more, and all those, you know, branding questions and marketing questions that you're very familiar with. We often say at Hear Me Out, you know, don't think of music, as sound. Let's start thinking about music as a tool, because you're used to applying branding, visual branding to all of your tools. You see down here at the bottom of the screen, you know, your online videos, social media, TV, retail, events, products, apps, mobile, physical products, you know, how experiences, all of these things. You're used to, okay, well, we're obviously going to have the logo on the wall here, and we're going to have everything, our brand colors. But not many brands have brand guidelines and think about it as one of those tools, because visually we know the return of investment on all of those tools. So how do we actually start thinking about sound in that same toolkit? And that's a huge mindset shift that we get a lot of our brands to change. And because of that, you end up getting that long-term brand recognition and recall. And that's where you really see the ROI. You know, all the brands we've mentioned today, all of them are winning now because of the fact they have stuck to it and done it for so long. And once you get, 2 years, 3 years in, you really start to see the effect. So this is a long-term strategy. Small brands, you can have short hooks, sign-offs in videos. And I'd actually say nowadays, not just sign-offs, but how do you sign on in videos? The first 2 seconds of your social media, could you have something that's unintrusive in the background? Maybe it's a product sound that people recognize you for. Maybe it's your jingle that you can stick in the background, but in those first 2 seconds. So as people are scrolling, they get this moment of, I know this. There's familiarity, there's trust that's already there. Not many brands are doing that at all, by the way, at the moment. Consistent music cross platforms. How can you don't need to have just one song over and over again. That's where we'd recommend for you to choose one song. We're not talking about subjectivity here. This is a song that has objectively been chosen to speak and connect to your demographic and speak to the values and core values of your brand. Keep using it. We often use this phrase brand fatigue, where your team or yourself are getting bored of hearing the same song over and over again. But if you think on average, one person sees 1 in 10 pieces of content that you put out. So the chances are of somebody in 10 videos hearing that song is that quite likely they've only seen one piece of content. So for them, it's the first time they're hearing it. And trust me when I say that people are not bored of hearing. I mean, look at Jet 2 right now, as of summer 2025. Jet 2, certainly in the UK, I don't know if this is global or just over Europe, but certainly in the UK, Jet 2 have used a Jess Glynne song. And if you're watching this in 2 years' time, maybe you'll be like, I remember that. But they've used that same song over and over again. And yes, it can get a little bit frustrating hearing it over and over again, but it doesn't get frustrating if you love the brand. And if anything, it just triggers those happy memories and those happy emotions. Mini earworms, small, relatable audio cues. So we've kind of touched in on this. We will often create a brand track for brands. And this is a good way to think about it. What one song, what one piece of music represents your brand? And then from that, how can you create so many different assets? These assets might be app sounds. They might be small little sounds you can dot throughout your social media. And you can pull those sounds out of the brand track. And you know that everything then is consistent, cohesive, and you're getting that brand recognition. It all feels like it comes from the same place. So you can create these mini earworms, small repeatable audio cues from one piece of music once you have that piece of music. That is the way I would personally approach this. You don't need £1 million campaign to sound unforgettable. It's so easy to spend and blow so much money on visual campaigns. And I know you're going to continue investing in visual. I'm not saying you should, but it can be very easily forgettable. There's so many campaigns I've seen this summer or last winter that I've already forgotten because there's nothing repeatable, there's nothing recurring in it. And once a campaign is offline, it's kind of done. It's in the past. Maybe it'll be memorable as a legendary piece of content, but chances are that that investment is done. Whereas sound, you can invest once and it just keeps giving and keeps giving and keeps giving. So you don't need £1 million campaign to sound unforgettable. Okay, let's summarize and wrap up. So we talked about sound hacks as in terms of memory. We went over those, jingles equals deliberate branding. And we think of it as a tool just as you think about visual branding as being a toolkit for yourself as well. So next time you can't shake a jingle, just know this, you have been sonically branded to. It has been a strategy that a brand has used and it's become memorable. And dare I say it, you've got like Baby Shark now creating cuddly toys and t-shirts and merchandise. They actually sonically branded to us first. I know it's a bit of a weird example, but hopefully that's made you go, hang on a minute, yeah. So they started with sound, which is very unusual. Most conversations, sound is at the end of the conversation, not at the beginning. But next time you can't shake a jingle, know that you've been sonically branded to. And if you want us to map out a free 1-hour sonic journey plan with you and with your brand, there's a link in the description. And what we'll do is we'll go from exactly where your brand is today and where you want to be in 12 months' time with sound, and just plan out that journey. And then we'll either work with you to make that happen, or you'll have gained the knowledge that you need in order to implement it yourself. So take us up on that. Book a call in. Link is down below. And it will be myself and Luke most likely on that call. Luke is the co-founder as well as myself. And just a little side note, we make and create the music ourselves. I'll leave this on the screen whilst I'm saying this. We are the music producers. We started Hear Me Out of a pain point of not getting the chance ourselves as composers and producers to speak to the brands that we were working with and really understand what it was. So you can imagine it's yourselves, then an agency, then a music agency, then a music supervisor, and then generally the composers. And one thing I would love to say to you today is, how often do you get a chance to actually speak to the creatives? Because generally speaking, the notes that we receive are quite different to what you have issued to the agency in the first place on what it is that you're looking for in the first place. So we started Hear Me Out to be able to fix that problem and to be able to speak and strategize directly with the brands. And then we make much better music off the back of it. And to date, to recording this video, we've never had to go away and revise the one piece of music we deliver after we've gone through a brand strategy process that we call the soundboard, which starts with a 90-minute questionnaire with all the decision makers. We plan and create a very visual board so we all know exactly where we're at. And we agree on all of that. And we listen to some music together and agree what music fits the best. And then we go away and make something really unique and specific to you. And to this day, we've never had to go away and recreate that piece of music because we're speaking directly with the brands. And I think that's made a massive world of difference. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, do the usual. Reach out if you want to just, say hi, leave a comment if you can. Let me know that this was useful. I'd like to make a lot more content like this that dives deep into exactly how brands can use sound and give you the direct step-by-step. So get in touch, let me know what it is that you need help with or help understanding, and we'll follow up with creating a video. Thank you so much for paying attention and giving me your time today. I appreciate you're busy, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.